Welcome to B&B RV. We're going to take a tour through our 32-foot Class C with bunks, show you how the inside of this coach works. We'll start from the inside up here and work toward the back. Up here you've got a van chassis. It's all pretty much the same as any other van. It's a heavy-duty chassis. All the gauges are the same. If you get into any kind of hilly driving, mountainous driving, this is going to slow down at about 40 to 45 miles an hour. It's going to shift down. When it does, just very gently pull your gear selector down into 3 and push this tow haul button right here on the end of the gear shift, and a light will come on right here saying tow haul. When you do that, you can drive up the mountain 40 miles an hour without it trying to shift up and down, and leave it that way going down the mountain. And that way you don't have to use your brakes, and it'll keep you from going too fast. Usually keeps you under about 55. If it's still going a little too fast for you, if you tap twice on the brakes, it'll shift down again. Or you can use your brakes some. You just don't want to ride your brakes going down the hill. On the radio, this is all your radio. There's a cam button on here, which is your reverse camera, your backup camera. That can be on at any time. I use it for just a rear view camera. When you're driving, don't trust it 100% when you're backing up, because anything in shadow you can't see, but it's just a nice extra feature. The refrigerator in these, to be operational, needs to be fairly level. When you're driving, those fluids will circulate, but when you're parked, it needs to be pretty level for that fridge to work. And so, as we showed in the outside walk around, we have those blocks that you can pull up onto level. We put the level in here so that you know where you're at. This area here is pretty level, so you can just set the level there. If that bubble's touching that black circle, you're close enough to level. But if you're going to park for more than about 15 minutes somewhere, you need to get level for that fridge to work, or shut off the fridge depending on how hot it is out when you're renting. So everything else is pretty standard up here. The cruise only really works on level ground because these are heavy vehicles, so if you get into any hillier terrain, that cruise isn't going to work. In the glove box, you're going to find a insurance and registration for the vehicle if you did have to have that. Up here on the top, this piece actually fits right here into this hole to make your front bed, and then this curtain velcros across here and blocks off this area behind the seats. It hangs right here behind the seats to block off the front area, the windshield area, just for privacy. These curtains just slide on these rails. They're not flimsy, but they're certainly not strong. If you kind of push on them when you slide them, it works great, but if you pull it all, it tends to pull that out of the wall, so just be careful of that. Your flat screen TV up here is on a swing out mount. This TV is disabled by law when the key is on because it's within sight of the driver. So when the key's on, this isn't going to work, but any other time you just need electricity for this. And again, for electricity, you need the generator on or plugged into electricity. Driving the car doesn't produce electricity. So you get your flat screen, your DVD. If you want to watch broadcast TV, it's just this antenna right here, and you can crank this up and it'll go all the way up, and you can pull this down and turn it for reception if you decide to do that. But if you do use it, be sure that you put these, if you've turned it, turn it back to where the arrows line up, and then crank this back all the way down, because that's mostly plastic and you cannot drive with that up. So that's your front TV, and we'll get to the back TVs here when we get back to the bunks. We have a number of items in here: a fly swatter, some cards, some playing cards, some matches, atlas, campground guide, and we have a couple of sheets here that are very useful for you. How to get a cleaning deposit back depending on which package you chose. This one's very useful. This is an RV departure checklist for the exterior and the interior. Things that are easy to forget, whether it's your first time or your 100th time out in an RV. Did I remember the power cord, the water hose, etc., etc. on the outside? On the inside, alright, did I lower the TV antenna, turn off my water pump and my water heater? Those kinds of things that as you drive, getting ready to drive, making sure things are off the countertop so that they won't fly around when you drive. So that's very useful. There's some operating tips in here for your electrical system, your 12-volt system, your water, your waste, your propane. These are just reminders, commonly asked questions, so if you're not sure about something and you look here, it'll probably remind you. If not, we do have all our numbers on here for you to reach us, so please get a hold of us so that you don't get frustrated for 2 or 3 days before you call in. This is a hide-a-bed, a jackknife sofa that just folds down to a bed. So what you do is you just lift this up and fold it down. That's one of your sleeping areas if you need it. There's a little bit of storage underneath, and of course there's seat belts at all these locations. The table comes up off of the legs, so you just wiggle this up off of these legs, and these 2 legs just come out of the floor and lay flat under the bed. And then this table just lays on these rails right here, and these 4 cushions make a bed. So that's usually the last sleeping area that people use if you need that much space. These curtains all work great, but you'll want to grab them in the middle, not at the end when you pull them down, otherwise it kind of twists them. And they just easily slide up and down on the string. And we'll move back here to the middle and take a look at the control panel. Back here in the center of the coach, we've got your control panel where you control all of the features of the RV. This has 2 slide outs. So these are your slide out buttons here. You just simply hit the out, hold down that button, and the slide will slide out. Once it's all the way out, you just let go of the button. Obviously, as you can tell, only takes a few seconds to set up camp this way. It's all the way out, so you let go of the button. For the back slide, you do the same thing. And that whole wall in the back, including your 2 bunks, and the very back will slide all the way out as well. When you're sliding the slides back in, there's a couple of areas that you want to be aware of. That area between your wardrobe and your bed in the bedroom, when you slide that slide in like I'm doing now, that whole slide, as you can see there, that whole slide's going to come in underneath of the bed. And you don't want to have any toys, balls, shoes, things that accumulate there. When that slides in under there, it's going to just crush that bottom of that bed, and you want to make sure that doesn't happen. So just be aware of that in the bedroom. And then up here in the front slide, there's a couple of similar areas. Right here behind the driver's seat, when that one's in, that area right behind the driver's seat tends to gather shoes and sandals and that kind of thing. And then when you push this out, you got to watch for that behind there because it'll tear that trim off. And the same thing back here in the kitchen area. Anything that's on the counter right here, when you drive, ends up down behind the slide, and then when you slide it out, it'll just tear that trim off. So be careful of those 2 spots while you're out, as well as the bedroom. And the slides really open it up and make it feel nice. Just be aware of those areas when you use them. In here we have the kitchen with the microwave and the oven. Everything's pretty standard here with the oven. This particular one has a sparker. If the one you rent doesn't have a sparker, you'll just turn this on and light it with a match. With this one, you just hit the spark and it starts. All the ovens are the same, and if you're going to use the oven, you turn this to pilot, hold in the pilot, and then you light it in the very back. You need to hold this in, and it takes quite a while to get these to light. So if it's not lighting, just hold that in. It takes a little while. It will finally light. Turn that back on. So the oven is the only thing that has a pilot. These don't have a pilot. You light those each time. Microwave is the same as you would be used to it. The refrigerator is all automatic. It, excuse me, it runs on propane, and it'll switch to electric whenever you have the generator on or you plug into electricity. This orange light down here right now indicates that we're working on gas. It's what's running on your propane. If that light starts flashing, then that's when you want to turn this off and turn it back on to auto, and it'll automatically relight. If it can't relight for some reason, 30 to 60 seconds later, that will flash again, and just try it again. Typically you won't see that, but be cautious of that. Watch for it. You don't want it to be 8 or 10 hours after you realize that that fridge went off. And then you have a colder button here to set the temperature to what you want. Typically, especially in the summer, this is going to be on 4 or 5. We start these up the day before you get here so that everything's ready for you to use. In your bunks, you have TVs. That's a flat screen in each bunk. There's a DVD player. There's a slot on the left hand side. There's going to be one remote for these, and that remote will actually control each TV. It's just that you have to share it between the two. The rest of your control panel right here is the top left here. This is a water heater, or water pump and a water heater. So the top one's labeled water pump. You'll just use that to have onboard water. So if you're at a campground and you have your hose hooked up, you don't need to use the pump. Anytime you use the pump, it's going to take it out of your onboard water. Your water heater, turn that on. It takes 10 or 15 minutes for that to heat up, get hot water. It's a 6.2 gallon water heater. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it actually does a very good job. I always leave these off if I'm traveling or go away from the RV. But if you're traveling and want water, you just turn this on and it'll work fine. Traveling and getting hot water, typically if you try to have that water heater on while you're traveling, it's going to blow out from the wind. So I try to have the water heater off when I'm traveling, but any other time, that's how you use your onboard water. There's a tank heater on this particular unit, which is just used for cold weather operation to keep it from freezing up. All your gauges are here, and there's a small light that says empty, and it goes up to full. So your LPG is your propane. Push this button. It indicates that we're full. Battery, we're sitting here. It's been waiting for you to get here overnight, so it's basically full. Anytime you drive, plug into electricity, or run your generator, you're going to charge that battery, so you should be fine. The fresh water is full, and you're leaving with an empty black tank, which is your toilet, and an empty gray tank, which is the wastewater from your sinks and your shower. To start the generator, it's this top button here. You typically don't need to use this prime button, so you can ignore that, and just hit the start when starting the generator. And you're just going to hold that down until it starts. Let it run for a minute or two before you start up anything like the microwave or the air conditioner, or put it under load. When you need the generator is if you need electricity, which is the microwave, air conditioner, or any outlets. That's when you need to have the generator on or be plugged in at a campground. And that's the only time you need it. And you can run this generator when you're driving. So if you need to run the microwave because you're making something, or you want to run the air conditioner because the dash air is not sufficient to keep it cool in here, go ahead and start that generator when you're driving. The generator runs off of the same fuel as the engine, so it's plumbed into your tank at about 1/4 of a tank. So you get below 1/4 of a tank on your engine, that's going to stop so that you can't run yourself out of gas in a remote area. So if you know you're going out somewhere and you're going to need your generator, just make sure you have that right amount of fuel. The other thing is that the generator will run everything in here, but not necessarily all at the same time. If you're using your air conditioner and you want to use your microwave, then you'll want to shut off that air conditioner for just the few minutes that you're using the microwave, and then turn the air back on. The air conditioner is right here in the center, and it's ducted throughout, but one of the features that it has is this little vent right here. There's a small little vent that you can slide shut to push it through the ducts and cool it more evenly, or slide this open, and that's just called a drop down, what that'll do is put most of that cold air right here in your living space. So if you're coming back into the unit and it's hot and you want to cool it off a little quicker, have this vent open. It'll put all the air up here in the front and cool it off more quickly. Then once you get it cool, you can put it through the ducts. Now that'll cool everything more evenly, but if you try to do that first, you're having to cool down the whole ductwork, and it just takes a little longer to cool down the unit. To run the air conditioner or your furnace, it's all on this particular one, just a digital thermostat. You push this on and off button once, that gives you your fan, which you want to just leave on auto. Once more down to cool, and you set your temperature what you want. Once more down to furnace, set the temperature the way you want. Once more is off. So it's just that simple. You want to make sure that everything is off whenever you are going to start or stop the generator. You don't want to start it under a load. So just make sure you've turned off the microwave, turned off the air conditioner. The air conditioner has a few seconds, anywhere from about 10 seconds to 60-second delay as it's starting up and shutting off. And the furnace also cycles through, so when you shut this off, it doesn't necessarily shut off immediately. Just make sure all those are shut down before you then come back and hit the stop on the generator. And again, you only need that generator for air conditioner and microwave and outlets if you're not plugged in at the campground. If you're plugged in, you don't need that. In the bathroom, it's pretty self-explanatory in these. The toilet is what we call a foot flush. It's got this little pedal here on the bottom. If you push it down part way, it adds water to your toilet. All the way down flushes your toilet. Very simple to use. You've got a faucet, you've got a shower. All of our showers, on the shower head, you're going to have an on and an off switch. So you can get wet, turn it off, soap up, rinse off, and save a lot of water instead of just letting that water run. Especially if you're not hooked up at a campground, you'll go through all your water very quickly in the shower. There's a trash can in here and a small bucket with some cleaning supplies and a small broom. You'll want to leave this shower door closed as you drive so that it won't flop back and forth as you drive. And one last thing in the bathroom is we do include some extra toilet paper for your trip. And this bag has these small little pouches in it. So after you've gone outside and dumped your black tank, everything's done outside and it's empty. You come back in, you put one of these pouches in the toilet, and you flush it down, and that just keeps everything from growing and stinking, and makes it a little more pleasant, and it breaks it down so that it will dump more easily as well. In the bathroom there is an exhaust fan. There's just a small switch here that turns that fan on and off. All of your lights throughout most of them will have a switch on them. There are a couple, like the entry lights there at the entry, that you don't have a light switch on the light because there's a switch down by the door. Some of them, like the bathroom, have a switch both. So if you're trying to get a light to work and it won't work, there's just a switch for it. In the back, really the only thing in the bedroom of note is that very back window. And it has two red latches right there on the sides that release, and the window will swing open. So if you're in the bedroom and there's an emergency where you can't get out the front, you can swing that window open to escape. And that's our 32-foot Class C bunk model, our most popular rental. And watch this preview before you come in. You're all set to go, and we'll expedite your trip. I hope you have a great time. Thanks for coming to B&B.